as president. He'll meet Theresa May today and have tea with the Queen at Windsor Castle tomorrow. Extra security has been put in place across the UK for President Trump's visit, with thousands of protesters expected to turn out for demonstrations in London and Glasgow. Ahead of his visit this morning, President Trump insisted that his country's commitment to NATO remained very strong. He also said that his NATO allies had agreed to his demands for an increase in the amount they spend on defence. The government has published its blueprint for UK relations with the EU. The document says freedom of movement will end, but suggests that EU citizens will be allowed to come to the UK without visas to do paid work in clearly defined circumstances. Sport now. Let's join Sarah. Hello.
Hi Martine. Well, the World Cup dream may well be over for England, but amid the pain of exiting for the players, there has been a great deal to feel positive about. Defender Kyle Walker believes that England brought the nation together by reaching the semi-finals and proved their critics wrong in the process. Not many thought the team would get this far, and their action on and off the pitch earned them a new respect. Walker was one of lots of players who took to social media after the game. Clear to say that he felt the support from all the fans over the last month or so. Also added that it felt great to have that in Russia for the team. It helped unite them just like it did with the country. And while the man in charge, Gareth Southgate, well, he's also come in for a lot of praise, hasn't he, at this World Cup? His leadership has been a big part of fans reconnecting with the team. The former England women's defender Alex Scott was in Russia for the tournament, and she thinks these players coming through the ranks with Southgate, who previously managed in the youth setup, has made all the difference.
The England team has become one team. It's not just the senior team. When the women's team's there, we're mixing with the men's team. When the youth team's there, they're mixing. You see a pathway, and that gives you inspiration that, okay, I want to make it to the top. There is a new DNA for fans to get excited by the football that you play, by the people, investing in the people as well, that reconnection with fans. That's what this England team is all about now. St George's has allowed that team bonding element to connect as people as well, which is so important because it then gives the trust to Gareth Southgate, that the players have the trust in the manager and the manager has trust in his players.
Well, from the World Cup to Wimbledon, because it is women's semi-finals day, and of course all eyes on Serena Williams as she tries to keep her bid for an 8th title alive. Our reporter John Watson is there for us. So John, how is she getting on?
Yes, well, she's playing very well once again. I guess, Sarah, after the disappointment of England's World Cup exit, let's marvel at the dominance of Serena Williams, arguably the greatest of all time in the women's game, where her opponent in today's second semi-final, Julia Gerges of Germany, is serving to stay in the first set. Live pictures now from centre court, where Serena Williams is leading by 5 games to 2. As we know, Serena Williams looking to book her place in another Wimbledon final. Incredible to think as well, this is just her 4th tournament back since the birth of her first child, and as you can see, she has just taken the first set with her coach Patrick Muratoglu looking on. Well, the first semi-final was played out on centre court a little earlier, where Angelique Kerber booked her place in a second Wimbledon final, beating the former French Open champion Jelena Ostapenko of Latvia. Kerber coming through 6-3, 6-3 after 2 breaks in the first set and 2 breaks in the second set. It means then that we could see a repeat of the 2016 women's singles final, where Angelique Kerber lost to Serena Williams. And it's fair to say, with all of the top seeds tumbling out, Angelique Kerber, the top seed, remaining in the draw, I think for the Wimbledon faithful, that is the final everyone will be looking forward to seeing, Sarah.
Indeed. John Watson at Wimbledon. Thank you, John. Will keep us updated throughout the day, and you can also stay updated on the website bbc.co.uk/sport. We'll have more in the next hour.
Sarah, thank you very much. Let's return to our main story this afternoon. Donald Trump has arrived in London for his first visit as President of the United States. His visit comes straight off the back of a fractious NATO summit at which the President has been pushing European allies to increase defence spending. Tonight, the Prime Minister will host a dinner for Mr Trump and his wife Melania, and tomorrow he'll meet the Queen. My colleague Anita McVeigh is at Regent's Park in central London. We can join her now. Anita. Martine, thank you very much. Yes, the President is spending a few quiet hours at the home, the official residence of the US Ambassador to the UK, before that event at Blenheim Palace. Later, it follows a busy morning, of course, in Brussels, where there were some pretty heated exchanges, according to some reports, at meetings around that NATO summit. President Trump, though, came away from that saying that NATO was in a much stronger position than it was 2 days ago. So coming perhaps to the UK in a fairly ebullient mood, feeling that he has something to say to his supporters back home about what he has achieved in terms of getting other members of the NATO alliance to pay more towards the alliance's defence spending. What will he expect here, and what can the UK expect? Well, lots to discuss on that front. With me is Dr. Mark Shanahan, an expert in international relations and US politics from the University of Reading. Mark, thanks very much again for your time. Let's talk first of all about what President Trump is wanting from this. Chiefly the optics, I should think, meeting the Queen and so on.
Absolutely. This is the photo opportunity par excellence. He goes from a stately home to a palace to another stately home to the greatest castle in the world, and then up to one of his own golf courses. So this is a great advert for Trump the statesman, travelling the world, meeting key leaders, shaking hands and meeting the Queen. Which will play incredibly well with this base back at home, and that is the main thing for him.
What was the calculation in the decision to come here this time, do you think? Obviously it fits in between the NATO summit and that meeting with President Putin, but he cancelled a previous trip when he was supposed to open the new US embassy. He said it was because he didn't like the building, but lots of people said, well, actually he doesn't want to come here and face protests.
Well, he didn't want face-to-face protests. He didn't really particularly want to be in Parliament Square, where he would be likely to risk facing the opprobrium of 100,000 people. Far easier to move around by helicopter, as we've seen today, without ever actually really engaging with more than a handful of carefully picked British subjects.
It's interesting looking at the latest polling around this visit. Opinion has shifted since the idea of a state visit was mooted, hasn't it? So it shows that more people are prepared to accept a working visit rather than a state visit. And is that a sign that more people are thinking about the importance of the relationship perhaps between the UK and the US and setting aside whatever their personal feelings are about the individual who is president?
Yeah, it's the crucial piece is the relationship between the two countries. Trump will be gone, whether it's in 3 years' time or whether it could even be in 7 years' time, and there'll be another president along afterwards. What is important is that the UK maintains a very close relationship with the United States. We've had a close relationship that goes across culture, across language, across economic strengths and shared outlook in terms of economics for the last 100 years. That's not going to be broken by one president.
Looking ahead to the protests, the main protests obviously tomorrow, a coalition of different groups coming together for different reasons. What do you think they're going to achieve?
They'll probably make Trump look quite good in the eyes of his base. I think they've got to make it very clear that a lot of people in this country are very unhappy with the individual and the way the individual acts, his sexism, his misogyny, the way he's treating immigrants and particularly immigrant children at the moment. All of that is not normal. The fact that he lies through his presidency and has normalised that lying on a daily basis is not normal, and that has to be challenged. But equally, he will look to his base, no doubt he'll be tweeting after the process tomorrow and say, look how they're insulting America. Well, I'd like to tell America now, we're not insulting America. Those people who stand on the streets tomorrow have a very particular aim. That is one person, and that is Donald J. Trump.
Okay, Dr. Mark Shanahan, thanks again for your thoughts today. And of course, there's a huge policing operation unfolding around the UK to cope with the demands of a presidential visit. I can talk now to Superintendent Sarah Johnson. She's from the East Midlands Operational Support Service and joins me from Northampton. And we know that many other forces are combining with the Met to police this operation. Just tell us what your involvement is.
So my role is within the East Midlands region, and we are one of the hubs who help to coordinate the mutual aid requests as they're spread out across the 10 regions of the UK.
So I know that you're dealing with, let me list the regions, Leicestershire, Lincolnshire, Northamptonshire, Nottinghamshire. How many officers are coming from those areas to help elsewhere?
Obviously, I can't comment on the numbers of officers who are deployed for obvious reasons, but we've deployed officers, as have most forces across the UK, in order to provide support to the mutual aid requests that are coordinated centrally. And they're often more about the roles that the officers do than about the physical numbers, so it's a mixture of those two things.
Are we in a situation, though, without getting into the detail of numbers, where perhaps leave has been restricted or cancelled?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, we are at a time when there is significant operational demand upon forces. When the requests are coordinated centrally, forces are able to have their own considerations about the level of demand that they are receiving and how they are going to manage that. That does mean that officers are working 12-hour shifts and the rest days have been cancelled, but that's in order to make sure that we manage both the demand of the presidential visit or any other event that is occurring at the same time as making sure that we have a response to local calls for service.
Well, let's talk about that particular point a little bit more, because some, including the Police Federation, have expressed concern that normal policing duties, what you might call normal policing duties, will be affected by the demands of this presidential visit. Is that a concern for you?
I think that there is huge operational demand at the moment, and I think it's really important that we ask the public for their assistance in making sure that when they call us, that they call us for genuine emergency reasons, and that they don't use the football as an opportunity for disorder, for obstructing emergency services. There is demand, but each force is able to manage that to make their own decisions about the level of